was a project that I recently undertook with Dstl, so the Defence Science and Technology Laboratories. So Dstl are essentially the R&D arm of the Ministry of Defence here in the UK. And really it was focusing around developing new innovation models, which I'll come on to in a second. But really what they were asking for was, how can we design disruption in the defence industry? Because that's what they're looking to solve, actually, in some ways. So a bit of context here. Most people know Innovate UK, formerly known as the Technology Strategy Board. This is a government agency that funds innovation in the UK, focused on specific key capabilities within the UK. Part of their work, they've got a similar system where they have special interest groups and different networks. And so one of the special interest groups is a thing called the Design Special Interest Group. And I've been working with Innovate and various KTMs for quite a while now, trying to understand the role of design in driving innovation effectiveness in the UK economy, specifically relating to technology-led areas, so to speak. And so one of the things that's happened is that I did some work with, as a consultant for the Design SIG, sponsored by the Innovate UK, to look at the role of the design in defence. And one of the first projects we did was actually looking at Dstl developed a future world scenario mapping tool, and it was this really, really thorough way of trying to generate a wide number of potential global, national and kind of local scenarios, and to try and understand what capabilities the UK might need as a result of those disparate scenarios. And the thoroughness meant that each world was defined in 40,000 words. I went to one of the workshops and we spent a day and we didn't finish reading the words describing the world. So there's a problem here about using words to describe complex scenarios. And so the nominal question was, can we sketch an image that tells a picture? Can the picture tell 40,000 words, not just 1,000 words? And the answer was no. And I won't go on to that. Well, the value of this model was actually about its thoroughness, and actually trying to create a sketch just to strip out all that thoroughness, right? So there's a balance here. Anyway, so one of the things that kind of came out here is that design actually could help the Dstl and MOD look at the challenge as much as create better solutions. And it's that kind of migration of design deeper into the innovation world, where design is used to kind of solve and express innovation solutions. The same process can be used to explore and define those problems in the first place. So Dstl, several thousand boffins, proper boffins, they're PhD guys, really, really smart, based in Porton-Down, but actually spread in Westminster and throughout the MOD. Porton-Down is where they keep what they call the magazines, and the magazines are chemical weapons. These are literal, this is serious, serious stuff. But they've got a kind of very wide scope and role here, and so, just to try and give you a sense of the scope, exploring the future, so kind of speculative stuff. What is the Federation, a la Star Trek, and things like warp drive? They're genuinely looking at these types of things. Controversial, things like novel energy and extremist, fringe communities, and left of field, so, groups like Anonymous and people who are kind of taking up anti-surveillance clothing. Now, it's really important here to really place in your mind here, this is not about things going bang. That's about 9% of what they do. There's a hell of a lot of fundamental research taking place here. And these guys probably have the greatest capability to kind of explore in the distant future. So they're trying to look out 30, 50 years from now, which has got its problems. Because the world moves so fast, no one outside of this world can confidently predict anything beyond 5 years. 10 years is almost unimaginable. These guys are trying 30, and I think that's one of their challenges. But we'll come on to that. The problem was that the MOD has been operating as a kind of complex, interconnected system for a long time anyway. As a result, that when they come to look at the innovation challenges, the system almost determines that the solution must be the same piece of the jigsaw that was before. And as a result, the MOD procurement process actually specifies the technology, the performance, the criteria, do what we tell you to do in this given time frame, that everybody's happy. And the net result is that actually it doesn't work. Things are too expensive, and I'll talk to that in a second. Outside of this, we've all been party to this huge change in technology in the last 10 years, this concept of open change, and the idea of exponential change as well. And I won't go into that, things like disruptive stuff's been going outside of Dstl. Dstl aren't performing as well as they could do because actually the market's caught them up. And I'll come on to that in a bit more detail in a second. So this isn't just a UK problem, this is a US problem, it's a global problem. And so this is a report that was published by the US Department of Defense called Technology and Innovation Enablers for Superiority in 2030. So, traditionally there's been huge amounts of funding, a discrete, self-involved world of innovation here, that these people just deal amongst themselves. And the US has said, we can't continue as we do, we've got some serious challenges, and I'll just break down what they talk about. So starting off, they predicted, this report basically said the world in 2030, really simple, really broad brush sketch. The vast majority of the world's population will be either born or migrating to large cities in the future. The Western world will be aging and getting smaller, the rest of the world will be getting younger and vastly larger. By nature, large cities, this is Hong Kong, have to be next to bodies of water because that's what people need, and climate change means that cities are likely to be the first places where climate change will be felt. Rising tides, weather effects, and so on. So there's an interesting idea here, which is that the DoD explicitly states that this is what one of the capabilities they should be thinking about developing, is international relief and rescue. And it's a really interesting concept that if you imagine the UK Army flying out Thunderbird 4 to Nepal in the last couple of weeks, and actually affecting change there dramatically, that's called foreign policy. And actually there's something really powerful within that. But anyway, that's a bit kind of out there. What they wanted to look at was kind of, if we're going to fund stuff in the future, what are we going to fund? And there were 4 key things they needed to look at, which was parity, cost, effective, and surprise. And I'll kind of detail them now. So this idea of parity, technological parity, this is a swarm of birds that looks like a bird. That's so nice, yeah? But this idea of the concept of open innovation is that they are able to develop ICBM missiles, things that fly very, very fast, very, very far, and land within a meter range, 5,000 miles away. And they cost 20 million each, or 50 million sometimes. But these ICBM missiles might be overcome by 10,000 smartphones. The idea of swarm is a very, very threatening thing to the defence industry because it has been focused on creating big things, big systems, not these kind of disparate, small, disorganised communities, if you like. So this concept of technological parity means that how do you compete against an open innovation world? Does that mean you have to join it? Or how do you actually beat open innovation by yourselves? The second is cost cutting. This is the new plane that they're developing, the most expensive plane ever. The pilot has some VR, so he looks down, he sees through the floor, he knows exactly where he's bombing. It's incredible. But this idea was developed 20 years ago before any such technologies existed. And they've been through billions of lines of code, and I think about 5 operating systems since it started. So by dreaming up this incredible ability to see through the floor of your fighter plane and having no capability to deliver that whatsoever, they're now in a position where they're kind of able to deliver it now. There's no need for this plane because the plane that it's normally replacing is still way better than anybody else's. So why the hell was it created in the first place? What's the requirement for it? But more importantly is that this is such a technological feat that actually it's become massively expensive, like 10 times over budget. And as a result, each plane is more expensive, and as a result, the customers are ordering fewer of them, and as a result, each plane is more expensive, and as a result, the customers are ordering fewer of them. It might never actually get into service. So going big and expensive and complicated isn't the answer. How do we do this? So a simple phrase might be, can we launch an ICBM missile for 2 million as opposed to 20 million? Is their phrase. 10x cost reduction would be brilliant for them. But if we launched a missile as Kickstarter, what might we do? Sorry, it sounds, I'll come back on slightly distasteful elements of this, but actually we need to be thinking about these things in this way. So another one is force effectiveness, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, but basically, again, out in Iraq, for the UK, for every soldier on the front line there to do a soldier's job, there are 18 people required to support that one person. Cooks, engineers, flight attendants, all the rest of it, flight attendants, pilots. It's actually, so when you deploy these forces at a very, very wide range, there are some real challenges about resupplying them. Does anybody know what this is? So there are 12 of these, I think, either on the moon, in space, and there's about quite a few more floating around the Earth. This is a nuclear power station. So they've been using radioisotope power systems for quite a long time now. And so this is something that's still powering stuff sitting on the moon. There are quite a few satellites out there. I'll even go so far as to say that there is a pacemaker. There's a nuclear-powered pacemaker. And that's been going for a long time, so it's not as though this stuff is new. It's just that it's very, very complicated. So how do we deliver better force effectiveness? And then the final one is a kind of agility and surprise, which is, again, I suppose, reflected in that aeroplane, which is these programs take so long to come forward that actually when unexpected things happen, the system is unable to kind of pivot to answer these challenges. And what they're saying is if you can develop an idea that actually provides agility and surprise, that cuts costs, that delivers force effectiveness, and mitigates technological parity, i.e. retains that superior capability, will give you lots of money. That's what the DoD are saying. Now, as I said, there was the same challenge to the Dstl and all these acronyms. Dstl is UK, DoD is US. So when we applied the thinking to Dstl said, look, we've got 5 areas where we think there's going to be real disruptive change. And what we want to do is try to understand how we can adapt our process, our models, and our culture of innovation to better answer these challenges. And I'm just going to go through these, kind of unlocking, self-sustainable, kind of give some examples. But the question they were posing is, what role do designers or external experts have in helping us solve these challenges? And so the project I'm talking about is a kind of workshop I did where I invited, maybe some people in the room, I don't know, to try and look at these problems. So unlocking human capability is this concept that by being connected, we're more powerful. Big data is brilliant. No, it's not. Big data, there's a thing called the fog of war, right? The fog of war is there's too much information. So how do we actually help humans understand this huge amount of data that's going to be presented in their eyes and through sensors and so on? The other element of unlocking human capability was an innovation culture, and this is the image I used for them, which was to say that they were kind of saying, should we have or should we build a design culture? And the answer was, well, actually, you do have a design culture. It's just sporadic. And they call it soft systems, which is quite interesting. So soft systems is their design culture in the M&D. Self-sustaining forces, again, is this concept of soldier burden. And there's a program called FIST, Future Infantry Soldier. And I've seen this prototype, and the man was sweating on a cold day in the Excel Centre in London because he was wearing such crap batteries, goggles, everything. So, how do we go about actually, could we give him a toga, an armoured toga? It is a question that's genuinely being asked, because togas were, we'll move on. It's about flexibility. Logistics. Again, what I'm talking about here is the air bridge. There is a constant, flight path, hundreds of planes every month. How do we stop that? Some people might have seen the dismantling Bagram Air Base. There was a program on Channel 4, and there's huge amounts of waste, and huge opportunities to engage with the local populace in a more positive way. They were smashing up land rooms in front of the Arabs. Smashing them up, just to say, you can't, not give them away, not use them for humanitarian, ridiculous. Novel and cyber effects. Logistics, that's wrong. This is cyber war, and this concept of anonymous, and cyber war that is taking place today. Industrial espionage at a massive scale, national espionage, international espionage. Who are our soldiers in a cyber war? What's the regiment? How do they build within the MOD, within the army? Each regiment has a story to tell from hundreds of years ago. What's the story the cyber regiment needs to tell to engage and actually begin to become part of the MOD? And swarm, and essentially swarm is the same concept of this kind of technological parity. I mentioned it twice because it's really important. The MOD is very, very worried about this type of stuff. Pervasive situational awareness. So, the connected battlefield. This is a photo from Iraq, and this is the American operations base. And the kind of sponsor I had within Dstl is an ex-army captain. He said, yeah, my desk was over here, and I had a paper map. And what you want is the other photo, which when the power went down, they were all crabbing around with map. More information. And again, things like drone networks. This is the, I can't remember the name of the company now, this is the Google drone network. Solar-powered things that autonomously float over space to provide a mobile phone network. This is internet.org. This is what they're going to be using. If we floated these over Ukraine and Russia, would we be able to kind of change people's opinions? There's a question. Should we develop them? Okay, so these are all big, big questions. Really, really meaty challenges that I'm sure you're all thinking, perhaps we could do this, we could do that. There's lots of different things. And if you look at it from the American perspective, they've got these kind of really big, hairy, audacious organizations, things like XPRIZE, DARPA, Skunkworks. And they set out to solve big, meaty problems, and they give lots and lots of money to the winning team. So the XPRIZE, the most famous example is the XPRIZE, which was the DARPA challenge, which was autonomous vehicles. And it sets out from LA, and you've got to get to the Nevada desert. Manage traffic, but also manage rocky terrain. Now, there were 4 teams that entered, and those 4 teams spent $40 million each. And the winning team did it after 3 goes, and that winning team was bought by Google. And that team is now the kind of core of their autonomous vehicle program. The point was the £10 million didn't start those teams. The £10 million gave those teams a goal. And my question is, why the hell aren't we doing this? Why is it that the TSB, and I love the TSB and they're great, but why are they going out little pitmances here and here and here and not pushing people to really jump for it? And that's what we need to do. So I wanted to set a thing called the Explorers Club, which was to enable the design community to converse with the MOD community, because I don't think we speak the same language, but we need to develop these relationships and these shared languages. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. And I thought I wanted to show this because it's kind of a bit of a left field approach to what life and death is. This isn't necessarily about products, but actually how do you develop better solutions in the future using this same process. Just a quick thing, finally, sorry. Our approach is we're sneaky bastards, always have been, really, really good at it. There's a thing called Operation Mincemeat that some people might know. We found a homeless man in Cardiff who was dead, dressed him up in an officer's uniform, put a briefcase around his arm, tied it, put him on a boat, dropped him in the Bay of Biscay, knowing that the tide would push him into a Franco-held place in Spain, and they would send the information in that briefcase straight to Berlin. And the information in that briefcase suggested that the Dunkirk landings were going to take place 50 miles south. So the German army moved all of their army 50 miles south, allowing us to do the D-Day landings. Without mincemeat, we were toast. So, sneakiness, deviousness, one dead man changes everything. And this is our supposed 10th regiments in North Africa. They're trucks, named Republic. So the challenge is how do we get there, and it's actually, if you're interested, I'll talk to you about that later because I've run out of time. But the biggest bloody problem is internal culture change. No one wants to make a risky decision. No one's ever been promoted for making a risky decision. And that's the real challenge. Actually, it's the human mindset amongst themselves that is the biggest challenge, not the problem that we need to solve.